Growing a beloved community. Today, as we honor the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, let me begin with a story about one of the most pivotal relationships in his life. During the early days of the Civil Rights Movement, Dr. King's leadership was shaped and supported by many, but perhaps no one had a greater influence on his commitment to strategic nonviolence than Bayard Rustin. Rustin, a gay Black man, was a brilliant organizer and a committed pacifist. He introduced Dr. King to the principles of nonviolent resistance that became the bedrock of the movement. Their partnership, however, was not without conflict. In 1960, under pressure from opponents who sought to discredit the movement by highlighting Rustin's sexuality, Dr. King distanced himself from Rustin. It was a painful moment of betrayal. Yet Rustin, with remarkable grace, forgave Dr. King, and they reconciled. Rustin went on to play a crucial role in organizing the 1963 March on Washington, where Dr. King delivered his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech. This story reveals an essential truth about leadership and community. Neither is defined by perfection, but by the willingness to grow, learn, and return to our values when we falter. Dr. King himself reflected, quote, "The ultimate measure of a leader is not where he stands in moments of convenience and comfort, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy," end quote. This lesson applies to all of us as individuals and as a congregation. We too are called to stand for justice, love, and integrity, not just when it's easy, especially when it's hard. So, how do we live into the sacred responsibility of building the beloved community that Reverend Dr. King dreamed of? How are we manifesting that vision here at UUCT? As this community makes strides in growing and leading ourselves towards wholeness, Tom Owen-Towle, UU minister and author of books like Free Thinking Mystics with Hands and Wrestling with God, he offers another resource as a framework to structure our efforts to glow in times of darkness. Today's sermon is the first of a 6-part series that I'll be sharing on third Sundays from now till June. That's the book cover that I'll be speaking from and inviting y'all to learn from. And I did order additional copies for anyone who may be interested, and particularly some for the board. In his book, Growing a Beloved Community, 12 Hallmarks to a Healthy Congregation, Tom Owen-Towle identifies many crucial points, but names occupying holy ground as foundational to this work. To occupy holy ground is to recognize that the space that you hold for another is sacred. Every time you show up to this community and have a conversation with someone, hold their hand, look into their eyes, is a sacred moment. Whether this happens here at church or standing in the grocery store and meeting with a friend, anywhere that you are is holy. And this place of community is rich with the essence of sacredness. We know that it is not the architecture of our sanctuary that makes it sacred or holy, but the love and the justice and the transformation that we cultivate here. Think of moments that reveal this significance. The quiet power of lighting our chalice to start the worship, the sharing of communal joys and concerns, the joy from story time, the swell of music that lifts our spirits, the shared laughter. All of these are moments that remind us of connection to one another and that something greater than ourselves. But occupying holy ground is not only about comfort and tradition. It is about the disruption and transformation that I often speak of. Healthy congregations challenge their members to address critical questions of faith, like how are you living your principles and values in the relationships that you have, not just in this community, but at home, at work, and in your justice work, but also right here in this church, in the meetings that we attend. How are you living your principles and your values? Owen-Towle says, quote, "Our chosen congregation is a tilling ground, a growing ground, and yes, sometimes a battleground. It calls us to show up even when it's uncomfortable and trust that the work we do together matters." This lesson resonates as UUCT prepares to navigate the challenges and opportunities of even short-term lay-led ministry. As we prepare to approach yet another time of transition, it can be easy to focus on what we feel we lack, whether it's time or resources or the certainty of leadership. But what if we saw these moments as invitations to deepen our faith and clarify our purpose? What if we trusted that together we already have all we need to grow into beloved community? Just the other day, I was watching a podcast. No, you don't watch a podcast. What is it? On YouTube, I was watching a video recording of what is also published as a podcast. And one thing that was shared there was that sometimes this society falls into the trap of thinking that we need to consume more before we can share our gifts and our talents. And so I'm saying this because what if we trusted that we already have the skills that we need to not only lead in this community, but to lead ourselves in whatever it is that we're trying to do, remembering that we are the ones that we've been waiting for, both in this church and in the society at large. A lot of folks have mentioned having mixed feelings about this inauguration day, but if you keep faith in yourself and all that you've been doing to establish yourself and be able to sustain the work that you're doing, I hate to say it, but it doesn't really matter who the president is. It truly doesn't. However, as I said, it can be easy to focus on what we feel we lack and what we need, the time, the resources, certainty of leadership. But again, this can be an opportunity to deepen your faith and to clarify what is really important to you and what do you have control of. The second hallmark that Owen-Towle shares with us is welcoming all, which builds upon the foundation of occupying holy ground. It calls us to move beyond mere inclusion and embrace true radical hospitality. Welcoming all affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every person, which is a central tenet to Unitarian Universalist faith, but it's also an active, ongoing commitment to creating a culture of belonging. Dr. King often reminded us that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Radical hospitality also embodies this truth, asking us to welcome not only those who look and think like us, but also those whose experiences challenge us to expand our perspectives. We know that true welcome is not always easy. It requires confronting our assumptions and making space for the discomfort that often follows. It also requires being open to the change that comes when that welcome is extended. We know that this is where growth happens. When we invite new voices, we expand our understanding of who we are and what we can become. Owen-Towle identifies 3 key dynamics that newcomers bring with them as they cross the threshold of our congregation. These are questions that newcomers often silently ask as they consider whether this community might be their spiritual home, and I invite us to think about these things as well. Often newcomers wonder about inclusion. They wonder, will I be welcome here? What is expected of me? Who is present and who is not? Who is missing and why? It's important that we ourselves ask these questions and be prepared to address them when we are welcoming new people. I know as a minister of color, and as some folks know, the first Black minister of this church, a lot of times other people will ask, well, where are other brown folks? That, and that could be a complicated question, but you yourself have to wrestle with what is your answer to that when people ask you, when they come, are there other people of color? Yes. And what more will you say? These are questions that not just me as the minister, as a Black person, as a person of color, needs to be prepared to address when welcoming new people, but everyone. These are questions that we're all responsible for. Another question that newcomers often ask that I invite you to know for yourselves is, how does this community really operate? How does the church function, and who holds the true power? Who holds influence, and who might feel powerless? Look to your neighbors, and when I don't necessarily mean just right now, but as you get to know newcomers, we know that Regina, as an example, not to put Regina on the spot, just joined as a new member. Maybe ask, what do you think about how this church functions? Do you feel invited to participate in the decision making? Gratefully, Joni just recently joined, and Joni has been leading in different elements of church leadership. And I know that there was for a moment, like, how do you do that? How do you get involved? Everyone needs to know, how do we invite people to get involved, to truly help them to feel included? The last point in the section of welcoming all that Owen-Towle identifies as a dynamic is affection. A vital question that newcomers bring is this church warm or cold? And not just in its temperature, but how does it truly feel? And what are the signs that show that this is a warm and welcoming community? When you look around the space in the church, does it reflect that we are a warm and welcoming community? These are the questions that I invite you to consider as we move forward with growing and leading ourselves whole in this community. These three dynamics of inclusion, control, and affection shape newcomers' first impressions and influence whether they will feel a sense of belonging. By keeping these questions in mind, we can better practice radical hospitality and nurture the kind of inclusive and loving, empowering community that fulfills our vision of beloved community. We know that striving to embody Dr. King's vision is not utopian, but profoundly practical as well. Dr. King understood that building a world rooted in justice, compassion, and equity requires hard work, sacrifice, and perseverance. Yet he also believed in the transformative power of love. As Unitarian Universalists, we are a part of this legacy. Our congregation is already doing meaningful work to build the beloved community in our local area. We're going to hear an announcement about what we're doing with Capital Area Justice Ministry, a partnership with justice-focused organizations, as well as the active compassion we show in the wider community with our Share the Plate contributions, as well as the ways we show up in person. We are contributing to a world where equity and dignity thrive, but as we look outward, we must remember to look inward, remembering that building a beloved community begins here with us in our congregation. If we are to sustain the good work in the world, we must ensure we are cultivating wholeness, strength, and sustainability within our own walls. This means focusing on how we grow, lead, and care for one another as a spiritual community. To make this vision a reality requires more than good intentions. It demands intentional action. It calls us to build trust, to strengthen relationships, and to nurture the spiritual and emotional resilience that will sustain us for the long haul. But how do we do that? Where do we go from here? I say that we ground ourselves in a sense of gratitude It's four things. That's the first one. We ground ourselves in a sense of gratitude, knowing that in order for us to truly be great, we must be grateful. Let us give thanks for this community and the ways that it sustains us, remembering that every moment together, whether in fellowship, worship, or service, is an opportunity to grow in love and connection. In this moment of expressing gratitude, I also want to just take a moment to share thanks one more time. I said it last Sunday, but as I talk about growing and leading ourselves whole, some folks who might not have been here last Sunday when Linda Crawford preached, she was so excited to, I don't know if folks can see, we have this new handle on the side of the pulpit that made it more accessible for someone to be able to speak from the pulpit. And that someone who helped with that was our very own Lynn Martin. And I'm so grateful. I'm so very grateful for the ways that this community shows up. Thank you.
We all have different talents and we contribute.
Yes, it's like the story of the stone soup. Yes, we all contribute. And speaking of that, now in the back who's volunteering in the tech booths, Now's mom came out and helped with not only taking care of our plants, but also did some other things that Bonnie told me about that I can't remember in this moment. But the point of it is that it takes many hands to do the work of this church and growing the beloved community. And it takes all of you continuing to not only show up to fill the sanctuary with the love and the warmth that you bring, but to also take on the roles of helping, whether it's telling a story or singing a song or speaking from the pulpit or contributing your talents by building in some way. Another thing that we do is embrace transformation. Be open to change and willing to confront discomfort. Also practice the radical hospitality that we talked about. Go beyond welcoming people at the door and invite them into your actual heart. How you do that is how you continue to create that culture of belonging is to extend past just talking to people here, but go maybe, I don't know if y'all, if anybody else grew up in church environments where outside of the church walls, you actually connected with people and did things beyond just coming to church together. That's how you actually build community, where in times of need, someone will call you and say, hey, I'm sorry, can you help take me to the airport or to the grocery store, or even just go for a walk in the park? That is what beloved community, the kinds of activities we do together. It's not just work. We actually enjoy spending time with each other. The last part of it is remembering that we're not alone. And that's how we do it, by actually connecting with each other, knowing that we are a part of the larger movement rooted in Dr. King's vision, and allow that to carry us forward the way that generations of people striving for justice and love have done in the past. In closing, I want to invite you to reflect on the questions that we began with and ask, what does it mean for you to occupy holy ground? Where is the sacredness in your own life, and how can you honor it for yourself and maybe for another? How can you practice being welcoming to all? Who in your life or in this community might need to feel seen, valued, and loved, and how can you extend that welcome to them? Let us carry these questions in our hearts as we go forth. May we hold the legacy of Dr. King, knowing that we have the power to make a difference. Together, let us journey in hope, transformation, and shared commitment, inspired by the dream of the beloved community and the principles of our Unitarian Universalist faith. May it be so. Amen.